There you go. Hello, everyone. Once again, welcome to this webinar. April is National Donate Life Month, and we're happy to be here with people who can share beautiful life stories. You know, I was thinking when I was prepping for this might be a tearjerker, but that's fine. We all need, beautiful stories, especially now during times of COVID and all of that. We need to hear some beautiful news and hear some beautiful stories. So thank you so much to all of our attendees. Just a reminder that this session is being recorded and is going to be later uploaded in our community channel. You can use the Q&A or the chat boxes to ask all your questions. Please do so. We love to make the sessions interactive. I'm Sandra Arevalo. I'm the Director of Patient and Community Education at Montefiore Nyack Hospital. And I welcome my panelists for today, who I'm gonna ask to introduce. So we have Scott Wolf. So Scott, tell us a little bit about you.
Thank you very much, Sandra. It's a pleasure to be with you again. I know we spoke several months ago about donation, but this is obviously very significant since April is Donate Life Month. I am with Live On New York. We are the federally designated organ procurement organization that facilitates life-saving transplant in this portion of the state. There are 57 of us across the country. We each have our assigned territory, and ours is pretty large and significant, and that includes New York City, Long Island, and several of the northern suburban counties as well, like Rockland, Westchester, and even further. So we interact with a lot of different hospitals, and obviously Montefiore Nyack is one of our favorite, and we're very appreciative to be here today. And we also have two great volunteers from a local support group that we have in Rockland County. So they'll have great stories that can really put you in touch with directly what it means to either be a recipient or to actually make the commitment to becoming a living donor like Marta.
Okay, thank you so much, Scott. So let's start with you, Gail. Why don't you just tell us a little bit about you, and then we're gonna go to you, Martha, last but not least. So Gail, a little introduction about you before we get into the topic.
Right. My name is Gail Fleur. I live in Nanuet, New York for the past 47 years, which I can't believe. And I don't know if you want me to tell my transplant story, would you? I mean, I have two grown children. I worked as a communications director for Nyack Schools for 30 years, and now I'm retired.
Yes, thank you so much. And of course, we want to hear your story. So if you want to start with that, and Martha doesn't mind starting with Gail, then we're all set. Thank you, Martha. So Gail, what happened? Tell us a little bit about, not everybody needs an organ. So what made you go that route?
Okay. My story probably starts 20 some odd years ago when I went for an ordinary blood test that we all go for. No symptoms, and my liver enzymes, which they always test for, were elevated. Now that sometimes can happen from a medication you take, from stress, etc. So they sent me a month later for another one. They were still elevated. So they sent me to a liver specialist. You can imagine I was not happy about that. And the liver specialist sent me for a liver biopsy. Now, nowadays, when they see that, the liver biopsy usually is not the first resort. They really identify it more from blood tests that they have. But those years ago, they did do that. So I went for a biopsy of my liver to see what the my organ tissue looked like, because that was a determining factor. And it was found out that my liver was scarred because I had what they called then primary biliary cirrhosis. Mm-hmm. Now it's called primary biliary cholangitis, because about 4 years ago, after the Liver Foundation, et cetera, advocated for it, they changed the name, took cirrhosis off of it because it had a connotation that it came from alcohol. But it's an autoimmune condition. Anyone can have it. And it's very rare. It's on the rare condition list. It's like one in 100,000 people worldwide have it. In the United States, I wrote some statistics down. There's fewer than 200,000 cases a year, and it's mainly women. They detect it starting in middle years. It's 9 times more women than men. So it's there's there's research being done, but because it's so rare, that's what happens. A lot of research isn't done. They know it's autoimmune. It may be genetic because they find that twins get it, and it may have some environmental factors. But I was one of the lucky ones. I never had symptoms. There are people that they detect it in a blood test. It's a slow, progressive inflammation of the bile ducts, and the bile ducts get eaten away by the toxins because they get narrower and narrower. And that's how you get all kinds of complications and how you get cirrhosis of the liver, because the toxins back up and they scar the liver. So people get fatigue, they get aches and pains, they have dry mouth, dry eyes. The fatigue is one of the worst conditions. And there's a terrible itch associated with it that comes with the toxins. I did not have any symptoms for 18 years, nothing. All I had was the elevated liver enzymes. And the only medication that they give you for it is a bile salt called ursodiol. And I took that several times a day. And that's supposed to slow the progression. There's no cure for it, and everybody progresses differently. Only 5% of the people who have it actually need a transplant. So just everybody has it differently. But after 18 years, I got every complication in the book. My first one being after my daughter's wedding, I was very, very tired and got so tired that week that I couldn't get out of bed and had to call an ambulance, and I discovered I had an internal bleeding. Because what happens is that the toxins back up from your liver. They create varices with the portal vein tension, and they start to drip. The blood starts to drip out of it. So that's one. They tie off those veins, and you can live with that complication. But I won't go into the gruesome details of what advanced liver disease has some very disturbing symptoms. And then I got that itch and the fatigue and all that. And when I had that internal bleeding and was in the hospital, the doctor came in and said to me, "Have you ever seen a transplant doctor?" And I was in shock. And, many people who need a transplant, I would say most people, are in shock to find out that they're a transplant candidate. It's not something that you go, oh my God, oh yeah, I'm going to get a transplant. I couldn't believe that they were sending me to be put on a transplant list. So my gastro doctor, Dr. Goodman here in Rockland County, recommended I go to Columbia. I was put immediately, they give you a screening, et cetera, on their transplant list. And I went for the next 2 years regularly. They watched my liver enzymes. The liver enzymes got worse and worse. They go by a MELD score. There's a MELD score for a transplant where they check all your body functions. And my MELD score kept going up. And after about a year, they told me, the way you're progressing, you're probably going to need a transplant. And of course, I was in shock once again. But I approached my son, who had been following my condition. And luckily, he was able to be a living donor, and he offered to be a living donor. And he had to go through a series of tests, and he didn't pass one or two of them. He had to wait a few months and get a whole other battery of tests. As Marta probably knows, it's not a simple process to become a living donor. And I slowly degenerated. I kept working. Really up until a few months before I had the transplant. Probably that saved me. Just keep going. And then I got worse and worse and went into really crisis a couple of times. And I was in Columbia in the hospital. And my son came, and I was in such bad condition that I couldn't take part of his liver, because the liver regenerates. The living donor can give a piece of their liver, you give half of your liver, your liver slowly heals and regenerates. Their liver regenerates within a couple of months. Everybody's different, but they're fine, afterwards. So anyway, I couldn't, and unbelievably, I shot up from the bottom of the liver transplant list to the top because I was that bad. And miraculously, a 52-year-old man passed away that morning, and I was in surgery at 2 p.m.
Wow.
And I was in the hospital. It was a long process for me because I was so deteriorated before I became ill. So I had to, not everybody's like that. They wait for a transplant. If something comes through, they go to the hospital, and they know they're getting the transplant. I don't remember, I fell and in the house, and I don't remember anything for 2 weeks after that. So I don't remember going to the hospital. I don't remember worrying about getting the transplant. I remember seeing anyone. The doctor said that that's common because one of the side effects of the liver disease is you get ammonia. You get more ammonia in your system, which clogs your brain, etc. And I guess that was part of what was going on with me. So anyway, I stayed in the hospital a month. I had physical rehab there. I couldn't walk. I had to relearn how to walk. I was so atrophied. And I went home, and it took about 2 months till they let me drive. I slowly, thank God for my husband. He, supported me all the way. You do need a support system to get through something like this. And within, I would say, 4 months or so, I started feeling, kind of regular. It took 6 months, took it probably a year for me not to be scared every minute, because it's frightening afterwards. The blood tests, what are they going to find? Are you going to reject the liver? I had one scare where my liver enzyme shot up and they gave me another liver biopsy. Increase your medicine. They keep playing with the dosages of your medicine till they get it right. And now, I'm okay. So here I am.
That's a great story. Gail, if you don't mind me asking, how old were you when you were diagnosed?
When I was diagnosed, I was probably about 45.
Okay. And
Yeah.
then from the time of the diagnosis till the time that you were put on the donors list, how much time passed?
It was about 20 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
Yeah,
had my
so-
transplant 67 when I had my transplant.
And explain to us a little bit how that process was. So you said, you got a little scared when you heard the word transplant, if you were on a transplant list. So how was the process? How did you get into the transplant list? Who did you have to see to do that?
Well, as I said, the Dr. Goodman referred me to Columbia. He was familiar with the department there. They have a very well-known transplant department. And
Okay.
I frankly, I was surprised how fast it happened. I was disturbed by it, to tell you the truth, because I still was in a, this can't be me. I stayed in this can't be me category for a long time. And right away, they put me on the list like that. I had to see the social worker. I had to submit all kinds of papers, income papers, all kinds of, I was there for a few hours and they got me right on the list. But as I said, that list is very long. And I don't know the percentage of people that were as lucky as I am, but I was at the bottom of the list. So
Yeah,
people stay on that list for years. They if they're lucky enough not to pass away, they stay. I was only on that list 2 years.
Wow.
And then I got very ill and was lucky. Yeah.
Well, Scott, you better hang in there because all this conversation is sparking a lot of questions for you, actually, on this donation process. Thank you, Gail. Let's go to Marta. Marta, we wanna get to know you too. So please tell us a little bit about who you are and what's your story.
Hi, my name is Marta Rodriguez. I'm originally from Brooklyn, New York. I also live in Nanuet after 6 different homes. I'm the oldest of 4. I initially was an NYPD police officer for 5 years. And then I transferred over to Spring Valley. So I was a Spring Valley cop for 15 years and I retired in 2013. After a 2-year hiatus, I started working for the New York Blood Center as a per diem donor relations associate, talking to people who initially want to donate whole blood to see if they would instead donate double red blood cells or platelets. And I left there in July. So I'm the oldest of 4. My brother is a year and 5 days younger than me. And when he was 26, he started itching, like Gail said, all over. And after a series of tests, they finally did a liver biopsy and they told him that he had something wrong with his liver. However, at that time, they said that there was nothing to be done for him and just when he felt ill to go to the hospital. So 6 years later, he got jaundice and they ran a battery of tests on him. And after a few months, they said, you need a liver transplant. And all the family members tested and I was the best match for him. However, they told me that it would be more unsafe for me than for him. I don't know what the technology was at that time. I don't know if, being a single mom of a 5-year-old somehow came into play. Speaking with medical professionals now in 2021, they're telling me that he was probably too sick, that it wouldn't have been beneficial for him.
Yeah,
And he was number 2 on the list. This was in Mount Sinai in the city. And we saw number 1 sick and number 1 receive his liver and walk out of the hospital. So we figured it would just be a matter of time, but that didn't happen. And my brother ended up passing away when he was 32 years old.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. It makes you appreciate life more every single day. So I've always kind of been like wanting to, I'm an avid platelets donor and all that. And I decided that I wanted to donate so that another family wouldn't have to go through that. So in 2016, I started the process. I asked one of my friends, Roxanne, to see if she could know somebody how do I go about it? And she brought up another name and whatnot. And so anyway, there was a girl who we were the same blood type. I didn't know who she was, but she sounded like somebody that I could help. So I said, all right, I want to be matched up to her. And she was not on the transplant list, but she put herself on and both of us ran through the battery of tests. This was through St. Barnabas in New Jersey. And after all the tests were done, my BMI was too high. So they said that I wouldn't be able to donate to her. I had to lose about 20 pounds. In the meanwhile, she got a couple of calls and she eventually ended up getting a kidney. She's still good today. Her name is Terry. We still keep in touch. In 2019, I started the process again, but this time with Columbia Presbyterian. And they said if I could be involved in a chain instead to start it off because of my blood type, they said would be better for a chain. So I said, fine. Because of COVID, things kind of stalled. We were scheduled to donate in December and then February 4th. The closest I got was February 1st, and then it got put on hold because of medical issues. But as of right now, I'm scheduled to donate on May 6th with Columbia. My son also has a liver disease. And just recently, last week, my niece was discovered to have a liver disease. So, and they're all different liver diseases, but somehow, like Gail, like you said, my brother was primary biliary cirrhosis. My son is autoimmune hepatitis. My niece, I can't even pronounce it, cholestasis.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
Another.
So she just gave birth last week, a month early, because her gallbladder was inflamed and they had to take it out and all that. And she's 22. But this is really, really important to me, organ donation. Yeah.
So Martha, I don't know if I missed part of the story, but so you tried donating to this guy, you couldn't, or this girl, and you couldn't.
You mean, yes.
Right? But then you still keep trying to donate. Like, what is it that you're donating? You spoke about a kidney. We're talking liver. We're talking blood.
I'm sorry. I'm donating a kidney. I'm so sorry. Yes.
You're donating a kidney.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. to a complete stranger.
Yes, because we're not strangers. We're all connected somehow. When somebody tells me, oh, well, if it was my sister, my husband, I'm like, right, but that's somebody's sister and somebody's husband.
Yes.
So if you have something that can help them out, why wouldn't you do that?
Mm-hmm. And Martha, you're talking about your blood type.
A positive.
You're A positive. Okay, so it's not easy to find organs for people who are A positive.
I don't believe it's that. And Scott, you're probably better at answering this, maybe, yes? No?
That's why, obviously, with donation, it's much like blood donation. You know, O's are universal donors, but they can only really take O's. But yes, I mean, A positive is definitely a unique blood type, which definitely, I'm sure, helps with the matching. So I'm sure your potential recipient is going to be very grateful.
Mm-hmm. So here is another question for you, Scott. Martha spoke again about kidney. We're talking about liver. We're talking about blood. I think, you know, the blood donations are a little bit more popular, but how many and which organs can we actually donate?
Oh, well, one donor through deceased donation can save up to 8 lives through their donation. And that would obviously be the heart, the liver, 2 lungs, 2 kidneys, pancreas, and their intestine. That's typically that's all that's facilitated in deceased donation. It's nothing crazy or nothing barbaric, or it's very specific. Through living donation, which we're very fortunate to have 2 people here today who have an understanding of living donation, kidney is obviously the most frequent and the most, I think most folks are most familiar with. But as Gail had mentioned, and Marta, living liver donors are becoming more and more prevalent, especially as medical science improves. And as Gail indicated, anyone can donate up to half of their liver, and then within a few months' time, that liver will regenerate within them to a proper function level. And then in the recipient, it'll also grow to almost 100% or a normal size or typical size liver. So we're seeing that much more frequently, again, simply because the need is so great. And through deceased donation alone, we're not going to be able to overcome to make sure that those 110,000 people across the country waiting for a transplant get the transplant that they need.
Mm-hmm. Can anyone be a donor?
Anyone can be a donor, as I think, as both Gail and Marta have discussed. Certainly from living donation perspectives, there's rigorous testing that they go through to make sure that they are physically fit. And I don't know if anybody talked about it, but I'd be interested. Also, emotionally fit. I believe, Marta, you could probably speak to this as far as the testing that they put you through to make sure that you feel comfortable with this, that this is a decision that you can simply abide within. But then also, when it comes to deceased donation, we say that nobody should ever rule themselves out, because this type of testing is performed in the hospital physically on those donors as well. So anyone, regardless of age, sickness, even whether it be certain types of cancer, does not rule you out. Even HIV positive individuals can be donors and are donors. So no one should ever decide that they shouldn't be a donor. The testing will be performed by the hospitals when the time is right.
Mm-hmm. And we're getting a question from Unique here. I think it's an excellent question. As I was about to ask this myself, can you donate portions of your liver again once it regenerates?
No, it's not really feasible, only because at the end of the day, even donation for the donor, for a healthy donor, it is surgery, and will be some scar tissue that's generated as a result of that surgery. So it's certainly not a wise idea. It's not a course of action for someone to donate once again. That gift is phenomenal, and someone is no doubt alive because of it, but that's probably the end of your liver donating days.
Mm-hmm.
However, I have heard of people that have donated a portion of their liver and the kidney.
Wait, a portion of the liver and a whole kidney, right? Not a portion of the kidney.
Right, because we have 2 kidneys and we only need 1.
Right, exactly.
It's a very small number, but I actually happen to have a friend, and Marta's absolutely right. There are people that can donate and do donate both. And I can't imagine the selflessness of those individuals, because that's just phenomenal.
Mm-hmm. You know, what I find very interesting, Martha, and very, you know, I really admire that, is the fact that you are donating while you're alive. You're going to be left alone with just 1 liver because you're helping a complete strange family. Yes, I do understand, you know, it's someone's mom or dad or husband or father or mother, but that's heroic. I think that's heroic. You know, it's amazing how you can be so selfless. Like, it's it's great to do that. Like, Scott, how many people do these kind of things? So is Martha like 1 in a million?
I actually don't know the specific number of living donors, but I know that it's not a lot. And we can certainly look it up, but not as many people who could donate do. I did check your attendance list. I know that we actually have a living donor who's actually part of today's chat as well. Lauren Walsh, she works with Live On New York, and she is also a donor. She gave a kidney to someone else. So while there are certainly folks who do it, there are definitely not enough of us who can, and that's part of the awareness that we look to raise, to make sure that folks who perhaps could donate think about it and give it consideration, because it will definitely come back to help, as Marta indicated, somebody's mother or father or husband or wife, and you'll still go on to live a fully functional, fully happy life without any concerns. Certainly, again, for a kidney or a half liver or partial liver.
We have a member of our Rockland Organ Donation Alliance group, Rhoda, who got his kidney through the internet, through a systematic way he developed of soliciting for his kidney. And he is now helping other people to create that same internet search. And he's helped, I think, if I'm remembering correctly, about 30 people contact people, strangers, to give a kidney. So there are very generous people out there who have stories like Marta, for whatever reason, things that happened in their life, that want to help other people. So it is probably, like Scott said, probably becoming more well known that you could do that. And I want to give a plug to our group, since I'm talking here. We're kind of a new group, kind of reinvigorating after COVID. We're a Rockland group that's trying to grow organ registration, because New York, unfortunately, is one of the worst states in the country as far as numbers of organ donation. So we're trying very hard to conquer that problem in Rockland and get information out, like you're doing today, about organ donation, how easy it is, valuable it is, and how gratifying it is.
Let's talk about the process of donation a little bit. So from the point of view of Gail, you're a recipient. I guess you go to a hospital, you get into a recipients list. What is the process to become an organ donor? And is the process different, of course, if you are, a live donor or a deceased donor?
I could certainly speak to the deceased donation, but again, I would definitely look to hear Marta's experience as far as the living donor pathway. Obviously, again, and that's what Live On New York does. We focus solely on deceased donation. We act as an intermediary between those people who could become donors because of whatever has befallen them as a health condition or accident, and then looking to work with the folks that are on the wait list that are waiting for that transplant. And it's an interesting process. As far as, first and foremost, we encourage everyone to sign up to become an organ donor. There are a number of different ways to do it. Most popular, I think everyone realizes, when they go to the Department of Motor Vehicles, they can sign up, check that box. So that's first and foremost. We encourage everyone to sign up to become a donor. But then also, the most important thing they can do after that is to tell their family. Because again, when the time comes when someone is being considered for donation, deceased donation, they're not going to be able to tell people what their wishes are. It's going to be their next of kin, their loved ones that are by their bedside. They're going to need to make that decision. So it's best if they know what your decision is and what your commitments are, so they can follow through and honor those requests. And then it's a coordination between the hospital where that individual may be and our organization, or an organization like ours, to both evaluate the potential donor and then to start to coordinate to identify a potential recipient, to make sure that those organs that are recovered are given to someone who is on the wait list, as Gail mentioned, somebody whose health is deteriorating daily and who's in dire need of that transplant. And then to identify the most likely and best recipient to work with them. And I think it's important to know that's regardless of race, creed, religion, sex. This is really, we identify people based upon a couple of factors, blood type being one of them, but it's really about need. Who is in the most need? Who can we help at that moment to get that gift of life, that second chance? And I think that that's very important, especially with all that's happening in healthcare right now, that people realize organ donation is truly colorblind, class blind. There is no way to game the system. It's based upon who you are as far as blood type, body mass, how long you've been waiting, and what type of health conditions you're currently enduring.
Mhm. And so, Martha, how can I become a live donor?
You just go on through. You can sign up any which way. I personally contacted Columbia Presbyterian. There was a young man by the name of Don Whitman who was looking for a kidney donation. So I called up Columbia and they told me, we have a couple of people that are kind of signed up for him. Would you like to start this altruistic chain? So I said, sure. And you just fill out like a basic questionnaire of your health history. And from there, where they see that, if you're in good health, then they'll further continue the testing. And they say this is the best way to get $1 million workup. If you have anything wrong with you, you will find out. There's people who found out like, hey, I wanted to donate a kidney. I only have one kidney. I've heard that story before.
Yeah.
They found a little nodule on my liver. So let's get it tested. Okay, once we can confirm that it's okay, nothing's gonna happen to you, then we'll go further on with the testing. Regular tests, pap smears, mammography, just everything gets checked out, of physical and blood work. So as I'm getting closer to the donation, there's a little bit more blood work because all I'm allowed to know about my potential recipient is the age and gender. So I know that I will be donating to a 36-year-old female. Things got put on hold because there was some kind of medical issue. I'm not allowed to know what that medical issue is, but apparently if we're matching, that person is 99.9% in dialysis, I'm assuming. So we have to constantly, as we get closer, do more blood work to make sure that up to the last minute that there's no rejection, no possible rejection. So like I just did a video reevaluation 2 days ago. I'm going in for blood work next Tuesday. And then the following Monday, I have to do blood work again right before my surgery on Thursday. Wow.
Okay. You're really living to be a hero. I mean, a cop, an NYPD, and now you're unbelievable. That's really.
I just tell everybody I'm trying to make up for past sins. That's all.
Oh my goodness. Well, I don't think you have too much left to do after this. Okay, so we spoke about organs. Here is another good question. Is it possible to get a donor from another state?
Actually, yes. I mean, state lines, it used to be a more significant issue years past. The country was divvied up into different regions where organ transplantation would be considered priority within those regions. But those rules are sort of falling by the wayside. And now it's really, again, who's in the most need. So obviously we collaborate with different organ procurement organizations in nearby New Jersey and New York, or across the country in California and West Coast. So yes, the lines don't matter that much. Again, proximity plays a key role as far as because you have a limited time frame once an organ is recovered to transport it and then have that transplant take place. But certainly we collaborate with New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Massachusetts, and neighboring states across the union on a regular basis.
Scott, do you know how many people in New York State are waiting for a donation?
Sure. At any given moment in the state of New York, you've got about 9,000 people who are on the wait list for a transplant. Typically, that number is predominantly folks who are waiting for a kidney. I would say roughly 8,000 of those 9,000 are waiting for their kidney transplant. But we've talked about it several times. It's not to diminish the need for a kidney. Kidney disease is life-threatening. Dialysis is not a solution. So every day, basically in New York, somebody does actually, unfortunately, pass while they're on the wait list. I think Gail talked about it too, as far as, or even Marta. You'll see people on the list and you think that everything's going to be fine, but a lot of folks are just still waiting. They can be in that number one spot and not get the match they need in time. So it's not hyperbole or exaggeration, but literally in this area, almost every day, somebody passes away waiting for that transplant.
Wow. What makes you jump up on the list? Like for Gail did that, she definitely got a lot sicker and then that made her go up. So is that normal?
Sure. Unfortunately, and I think certainly Gail talked about the liver with the MELD scoring and how they continue and calculate. It is unfortunate, but yes, you have to get sicker to get the transplant for the most part. I think for folks who are waiting for a kidney, again, because there's so many, you move up the list partially because how long have you been waiting? Because again, this is dialysis is not an answer. It's detrimental. But yes, it's a very fine line that I think most recipients and those waiting have to walk between being healthy enough to go through the surgery, but sick enough to actually have that need so that they can kind of climb up the list and hopscotch over others. So it's very unfortunate. And again, that's because so many thousands, hundreds of thousands of people, or 100,000 are waiting. So it really is a matter of, can you, how healthy are you to get through the surgery, but how sick are you that, the need is that urgent?
Yeah. Gail, you said that you were going to receive the liver from your son. However, that wasn't able to happen. I
Right.
assume you ended up receiving a portion of a stranger's liver.
No. I received a deceased recipient's liver.
Oh, a deceased, okay, a deceased recipient's liver.
Right.
And you don't know who that person is,
No.
that's completely anonymous.
No. Right. It's anonymous. I wrote, the family a letter, which you
Mhm.
distribute to the social worker at the hospital, but I didn't hear back from them. That's their choice, whether they
Yes.
want to correspond with you or not. I thought about doing it again. I thought maybe some years later they might be interested, and I still might do that. But yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
And
How
like
does it
Marta
feel?
said, my son, frankly, he had started the process almost a year before, but things held us up. His blood work, something was wrong with some blood work, so they go wait a month and take the blood again. So that was unfortunate. So that's what happened. I just
Mhm,
continued to
mhm.
get sicker, and the donor, didn't
Mhm.
qualify by the end.
Mhm. And Gail, I like to look at the human side of this. Of course, I think it's the most touching side. How do you feel about that family that donated the liver?
Well, don't forget, it's the man who registered,
Mhm.
and we call it the gift of life. And I say to people now, I never thought too much about transplant. I was one of the people, I checked it off on my driver's license, but didn't philosophically think about it because it wasn't going to affect me, But now when I'm more involved and think about it all the time, and I just found out that a very good friend of mine who's followed me all along the way is not an organ donor. And
It's
I
not.
gave her my speech. Which is, one, we're all going at some time. It's a difficult discussion to have because nobody wants to think about going. So, but when you think about it, you can almost think about living on. I think
Mhm.
about it that way, that I could give this gift, but actually in a way live on, do something. And what do we all want to do with our lives but make a difference? And what a difference you make to give someone else life. What more can you do to make a difference? That's the way I think about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
One
And
of the most pertinent ads that I saw was a picture of a little girl, and then next to her was a picture of a garbage can, and it said, "Where do you want your organs to go?"
Mm.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, that's something that I personally think about a lot. It's like, I'm an organ donor, of course, and I always think that way. It's like, where are your organs gonna go? It's like, if I get cremated, then they're just gonna burn out, or if I get buried, then worms are going to eat them, instead of like, no, really, truly, that's how I think.
Like to think about it.
Yes, and then I'm like, okay, wouldn't they be better, giving life to someone else and making sure that someone else lives as opposed to waste them? I think that the problem is, Scott, and please help me with this, is that even though we are organ donors, not all of us get to donate, right, after we pass.
Sure. No, I mean, it's wonderful for folks who do sign up, and there are hundreds of thousands and millions of Americans that sign up to become organ donors. But the reality of it is that, again, because this is science and this is medicine and this is highly controlled environments and highly regulated, I think only about 1% of individuals who are enrolled to become donors ever actually do go on to become organ donors. And again, that's because it's very specific, the conditions that lead to donation. Specifically for a deceased donor, they'll be in a hospital, they'll be connected to a ventilator, and there'll be several doctors that are tending to them to make sure that in fact death is imminent. And again, then the conditions have to be just perfectly coordinated with an organization such as ours to come in and coordinate with the hospital, the family of the deceased, as well as the potential recipients and their hospitals, a transplant center such as Montefiore down in the Bronx. So it's the circumstances are very complicated and complex. And really, even an organization such as ours that has a territory as vast as it is, 13 counties, 13 million people, really will have only around 300 to 400 donors in a year. And when you think about it, that's not that many people actually, when you consider how many people pass away every day or every year in the New York area.
Mm-hmm. You just said something very interesting to me. You said people need to be connected to a ventilator and we need to make sure that death is imminent. So for example, when patients are sick, let's say in a hospice or home care, something like that, is there a program in place or is there a way we can alert, the hospice or the home care, when the patient is dying, that they're donors, something like that? Because I'm thinking, maybe a lot of organs go wasted that way because, people might be dying and they're just dying and we're not doing anything to help preserve the organs.
No, and that's why the hospital component is so essential, because again, the ventilator is essential to make sure that even after the individual is basically declared brain dead, and brain death is death, it's not a coma, and that needs to be made very clear, that the ventilator will continue to oxygenate the body and the organs. And I get calls all the time from folks they've actually decided they're at home, the hospice care, and it should be noted that doesn't rule you out. These folks can still go on to become tissue donors. And tissue donation is no less heroic than organ donation. One donor for tissue can improve the lives of up to 50 individuals through that gift. And that can be any number of tissues. Things maybe tissue maybe isn't being adequately explained to folks who are watching. That could be eyes or corneas. That literally does give the gift or restore the gift of sight to individuals through cornea transplant. That can be tendons. We always see an athlete that maybe they blow out an ACL, you hear that, or something like that. And then it's a tendon. This is the transplantation that gets them walking, running, and back on the field again. Heart valves, bones for individuals with bone cancer. One of the ones I've always found very fascinating is even veins can be transplanted to help folks. The larger veins in our legs that are huge and really can make a big difference. And again, when I say tissue, folks think skin. This can be utilized for a number of ways. I think most familiar to most folks will probably be burn victims. Tissue is used to help with the recovery of that. And it should be noted that that's not that they just transplant someone else's tissue onto your arm and you'll always have a piece of that. It's a Band-Aid. It's used to help with the healing. It will molt away just like our skin does on a daily basis. But also it's used in reconstructive surgeries. Most notably, I was discussing with someone as far as a mastectomy, and the reconstructive surgery, tissue donation played a part in that. So again, not to diminish at all, tissue donation is incredibly significant. And the pathways to becoming a tissue donor are much more open. Pretty much anyone can become a tissue donor, regardless of how they pass.
Okay, can you donate tissue alive?
We don't really recover any tissue alive, and again, it's because you're talking about significant portions.
Okay.
It's also worth noting, by the way, that this is not in no way disfiguring of the body. Anyone, regardless of organ or tissue donation, can typically have a normal, what they might consider a normal funeral. Open casket viewing, that's always accommodated. But no, tissue is, again, very vast. And we say tissue, but it's important. I want to make sure everyone understands that includes bone and heart valves and other components that, again, while they don't necessarily save anyone's life, they really do ensure that they enjoy a higher quality of life going forward.
And, now that you talk about quality of life, like, I know some people have this fear that if you become an organ donor, you're not going to get the same medical attention because they're going to be waiting for your organs, like, oh, you just said it, you can't give life to 8 people. So, some people feel that, I'm more worth dead than alive, so they're gonna leave me die because they're gonna make 8 people live out of me. Is that true?
No, and I mean, obviously I could say no and folks could be skeptical, but the reality of it is that, again, a Montefiore Nag, you're a hospital. Your job is really to care for, help, to save, and to ensure long-term recovery for people. That is your number one goal, your number one job. That's how you are evaluated, viewed, considered as a success. And that's why there is a clear separation between a hospital such as yours and the organ procurement industry, organizations such as ours. It's only when circumstances look to be their most dire, and after extensive evaluation, conversations, huddles amongst medical professionals, that our organization is even included or contacted to then decide if, in fact, donation is a viable option. Because again, it's important that not just for perception, but also for reality, that that patient received the care that they deserve and desperately need. I mean, at the end of the day, obviously, recovery is the best result, and that's what we all cheer for, is for someone to recover from whatever it is that's happened. And again, that's why there's that separation. It's only when things appear as though maybe there's there's really no coming back, or things are certainly deteriorating. And again, through multitude of testing, not done by our organization or any organ procurement organization, done by the hospital itself, that we're involved in the process, and we come in to then start looking to speak and coordinate with the family to see if donation is a viable option.
Yeah.
Scott, isn't it true that the doctor does not know that the patient they're taking care of is an organ donor, right? I
Correct. No one in the
they don't
hospital really.
That's the point. It's not like the doctors are waiting. Oh, this one's an organ donor. Or this one, it doesn't
Like
happen. Because I had
vampires,
that.
right?
Yeah, I had that discussion with my friend. That was one of her main concerns, and that's a big thing for people to realize. I think that bothers a lot of people.
Yes.
Sure. No, and again, everyone says, well, if I have my license, I can assure anyone, the last thing the hospital does if you're carded in the emergency room is start looking at your wallet. I mean, their focus is you, the individual. How can they help and heal you? Again, there's also that separation. They have no idea who's a donor and who isn't. That list is maintained through the Department of Health of New York State, and really only organizations such as ours can even access that. So they have no way of knowing who's a donor, and they have no way of considering that or even factoring that in, because again, timing is of the essence. Their focus is you, the patient, the individual, because it's in their best interest, and it's in, their goal is to help you recover. So you're absolutely right, Gail. They have no idea, nor do they have a way to find out if somebody's listed to become a donor.
Well, I think that's important for people to know, because definitely there is some sort of fear out there, some myths that are going on. Martha, this question, you gotta know the answer. What can be done to stay healthy while waiting for a donated organ? Or, of course, you too, Gail, but I think you just said it. You go through so many tests and all of that. How do you keep healthy waiting for the surgery?
Try to keep a healthy weight. Like right now, I take 6 gym classes a week. Try to have more of a water intake. Try to have a positive spirit. That's really important to me. Downtime is important. Taking a bath every night is important, as opposed to a quick shower. Just being in a good, positive mode. Positive vibes bring about positive things.
Wow. 6 gyms, 6 classes of gym a week. That's crazy. That's really
I'm
a
retired.
lot.
Remember, I'm retired. So
yeah. Wow. Okay. And what about you, Gail? Like, how did you feel when you heard that there was a donor for you and that you were gonna get your transplant?
Well, you have to remember that I didn't know that. I didn't. It's very interesting. My attitude, I analyze it now. Even when I was deteriorating, because I worked right up till the very end, I don't know, something in me felt everything was going to be okay. I think I had to keep thinking that. I didn't walk around saying, oh my God, I'm going to die tomorrow. I don't know, maybe that's something natural, some kind of self-preservation. But, since I didn't know when the actuality was happening, I don't remember going to the hospital. I don't remember anything until maybe a week after I was out of the ICU, And
Wow.
even then, it's interesting about recovery, even in the hospital with the tubes attached and everything. I say to myself now, I don't remember worrying about the tubes being attached or how I looked, or
Mhm.
I don't know. It's very interesting. The whole thing is still interesting to me.
Mhm. Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. Mhm.
Sometimes
Okay.
people say to me, "Do you ever want that you have somebody else's a piece of someone
Mhm.
else in your body?" Sometimes people ask me that, and I
Mhm.
said, "I've never given that a thought either."
Mhm.
I've never thought about that. Even when I try to think about it, it's like
Mhm.
just not
Mhm.
there.
Yeah, yeah. Well, there are so many movies that we watch about, you know, spooky things sometimes. What you just said is one of them, like, a heart transplant, and then you start loving a whole different family and stuff like that.
Right.
I've seen movies like that. They're spooky. So, I think that we need to listen to stories like yours and Martha's, and obviously have the expertise of Scott here is very powerful, because now we're getting messages that are true, that are facts, and they're not just, as I said, it's movies, is creation, is magic, and in a way make you scared. I remember as a little girl I was scared because of everything that I've seen in TV, and nowadays, of course, I realize none of that was real. So we're getting to the end. Thank you so much for being here, Scott, Gail, Martha. Martha, I need your phone number. You're a friend to have. Let me tell you, because I know if I need something, I can ask you. If you can donate a kidney, you can bring me cake every day, girl. So I need your phone number.
Can I say
And
one thing about an event that we had on
please,
Saturday?
please.
So on Saturday, Live on New York, along with Rhoda, Rockland Organ Donation Alliance, we had a table set up at the Palisades Mall. And for 4 hours, we attempted to enroll donors into the list. And we were successful in enrolling 20 people, adding 20 people to the list. One of the hardest things for me to hear walking around when I ask someone's like, hey, would you be interested in enrolling? They would say, no, I'm good. And that's
Mhm.
really, really difficult to hear. Like I was ready to cry because in my head,
Yeah.
I'm thinking, you're good. And what happens if a year or two down the line, all of a sudden somebody in your family or your best friend, all of a sudden, and now you're frantic and you're like, oh my God, what can I do? What can I do? And there was something that you could do. Or I had one guy who said, I need these. And I said, not when you're dead, you don't, and
Good.
he walked away, but I really wish that, unfortunately, it seems like unless it happens to you,
Mhm.
then you don't really realize how important this is. And the word really needs to go out for that.
Mhm. Yeah, I totally agree. And as a matter of fact, when we had a similar session last year, that was the focus of it. Like, you might need it one day, a family member might need it one day, and it's your time to help, because you never know. And it's true. You never know when it's gonna be you, it's a family member, it's a loved one, whomever. And again, from my point of view, we are all wasting our organs somewhere, and we could make much better use of them. So yeah, thank you so much again. This was very touching and inspiring. So I hope that lots of people watch our recording and they decide to become donors. Thank you for all the hard work that you do, Scott, and you and your team at Live On, because I know you work very hard and you work very well with Montefiore, helping us recruit for donors, and of course Gail, Marta, all the people that are with you in Live On, who are trying to recruit more and more donors, do great work every day. Roxanne, I'm familiar with her as well, so send my regards. She's another great speaker. And hopefully you get a lot more donors from these. And let's keep the conversation going. And please, if you listen to these, think about donating. If you're not a donor yet, try to help other people feel more confident and at ease with the idea of donations. And let's keep it going. Yes, Marta, go ahead. We still have 2 minutes, so go ahead.
Roxanne Watson has a weekly radio show, if you're not aware, called Michael's Gifts, which is to honor her donor, Michael Bovell. And every Wednesday morning at 1700 WRCR AM, 1700 AM, from 9:15 in the morning till 10 o'clock, every week she has a different person who is either a donor, a recipient, someone who works in the field, gives out information, and it's a 45 minutes of informative, emotional show that anybody can watch.
Oh, that's very nice to know. Thank you so much. Yes. And next week, please join us. We're going to be talking about the role of philanthropy in healthcare. Like, we're non-for-profit organizations that do work in healthcare, and how we also need from your help and everyone's help, and how those dollars are actually put to work. So we're going to be disclosing some very good information about that, because many people wonder, if I do a money donation, how is that going to be managed as well? So more on donations, I guess, next week. And I'll see you then. It was such a pleasure to meet you, Marta and Gail. I hope to see you again.
Thank you,
And,
Sandra.
and I wish you lots of health and love in your life. You really deserve it.
Thank you. Thanks for
Thank
having us.
you.
Thank you, Scott.
Yeah.
Thank you so very much, Sandra. We appreciate this tremendously. It really helps us get the word out. Thank you.
Of course. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.